So I would like to introduce Professor Sammy Smooha, he's Professor Emeritus of Sociology at the University of Haifa. He won the 2008 Israel Prize in the field of sociology. Professor Smooha studied Israel society with a focus on ethnic relations and democracy in comparative perspectives. He has published widely on the subject of internal divisions and conflicts in Israel and authored articles and books on Arab-Jewish relations. Please, Professor Smooha. Thank you.
Thank you very much and good morning. I'm going to speak about modes of coping with minorities in the Middle East. But let me say at the beginning that I am a sociologist. I am not a specialist of the Middle East. I haven't done research on minorities in the Middle East. What I am going to do is just to apply sociological knowledge of ethnicity and nationalism to ethnicity and conflicts in the Middle East. I'm going to use a generalization about the minorities in the Middle East. I think generalizations that historians of the Middle East do not share and they don't like, but that's what I can do. Let me share with you my general view of the situation of minorities in the Middle East. I think diversity of ethnicity and conflicts, ethnic conflicts in the Middle East, is a real burden on the states and societies in the Middle East. They are not an asset. And this is something that states have to cope with it. Also, I think that minorities in the Middle East are badly treated. And I will explain why they are so badly treated. And I think generally speaking, the reason for it, because there is no democracy in the Middle East. To be treated equally and keeping rights of minorities, you need a democratic culture, which is really missing in the Middle East. The Middle East is a high conflict area. High conflict, I mean high ethnic conflict area for many reasons. There are about a quarter of the population in the Middle East composed of minorities. That's quite a lot compared, say, with Western democratic countries. What makes the Middle East a high ethnic conflict area are various reasons, and let me just go very quickly about this reason. First of all, countries in the Middle East were created by the big powers, the colonial powers, and their boundaries are quite artificial. And this boundaries created minorities. For example, in the Ottoman period, Ottoman Empire period, the question of the Kurds was not that central, but now it's central because the Kurds now are divided in 4 countries. And they became a minority in all these countries, and the boundaries of these countries are not genuine boundaries. And if we take, for example, Lebanon, it was artificially created by dividing it from Syria in order to serve the French as a Christian ruled country. Pardon me? The second reason is that that Middle East countries are all Arab, except three important countries. This is Israel, Turkey, and Iran. So this means that there is a majority of Arabs in the Middle East. And if you are not an Arab, you are a minority. So there is very strong, dominant majority of Arabs, which really overshadows and make other non-Arabs as minority. And the third reason is that in the era of nationalism in the Middle East is strong, and this is Arab nationalism, and this means that if you don't belong to Arab nationalism, you are a minority who is really deprived. And in addition, the Middle East, all the countries in the Middle East, except Israel, are Muslim countries. And again, if you are not Muslim, then by definition you are a minority, and there is no tradition of treating you as equal to a Muslim. And if you add to that there is a resurgence of religion or religious fundamentalism in the Middle East, then this problem of a minority who are not Muslims and also not Muslim Orthodox or fundamentalists, again, this creates really a problem. And I'm now going to the last two reasons which make the Middle East an ethnic conflict area, is that the Middle East has not undergone a secularization in the real sense. There are some people who are secular. Most of them, if they are secular, they are only partially secular. And in a place where you have religion dominant, then people cannot be treated equally, because to be equally treated, you have to have free mixing of people, that you have to have non-religious identity. And when countries are not secular or only partly secular, this cannot be really done. And finally, as I started and said, that the problem really, the biggest problem of the Middle East, that this is the lack of democracy. To treat people equally, you need a democracy. Non-democratic states cannot treat their minorities equally and fairly. And this is the situation of the Middle East. Before proceeding to discussing the modes of accommodation of minorities in the Middle East, let me make several conceptual distinctions. One, the concept of minority. People use this in two different means. A minority can be demographic. A minority means it's smaller in number from the majority, and a minority also used many times as a non-dominant group, regardless of its size. I use the word minority in the sense of numbers. So it means its size is smaller than the majority. So we can have then a dominant minority or a non-dominant minority, a dominant majority, a non-dominant majority, and we can find all of them really in the Middle East. And this happens also in other countries. When you have a dominant minority, like in Syria, for example, this makes the ethnic situation much more difficult. The second distinction I would like to make, that we have three kinds of minorities or ethnic. One is a religious minority. The other is ethnic minority, which means a small part of the population, which is different in ethnicity, in culture, in language, not in religion from the majority. But there is also a third type of minority, which is very important for our discussion. And this is a national minority, a minority which is part of a nation, or a minority which claims a right to self-determination. Now, what happened to the Kurds in, say, in the last 100 years, that they changed from an ethnic minority to a national minority. Before they were having a different culture, a different language, and a minority in their society, and now they become a national minority. They claim to be a nation, and they demand a right to self-determination, independence, autonomy, whatsoever. And this happens in other places as well, also say to the Berbers in Morocco and so forth. And this makes the problem of minorities very difficult, because in order to get autonomy or to be a separate state, you need also the support of the international community. It's not enough to do it vis-a-vis your government. This is our experience with minorities which become a national state. So these are the two distinctions that I am making. And now I move to the mode of accommodation. Now, I distinguish between 9 modes of accommodation. When you review the literature on ethnicity, you find that minorities are treated differently in 9 different ways. So I'm going to take this different modes of accommodation of minorities and apply it to the Middle East. Now, this modes of accommodation, they differ between themselves according to the way they treat the minority. There is a way to retain the minority and or to get rid of it, to eliminate it, to reduce it. Or the way can be authoritarian, non-democratic, or the way can be democratic. So this is the way these modes of accommodations differ. Let me just bring two modes of accommodation to show you how different they are. Let's take, say, ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing means that you try to homogenize society by getting rid of the minority, eliminate the minority. How you eliminate the minority? By mass killing, by genocide, or by kicking them out, by expulsion. That's one, say, these are modes of elimination, and they are usually non-democratic. Now, if you take on the other side, binationalism is a mode which is democratic and also retentive. It retains the groups, the minorities. Now, what we mean by binationalism means that you create a state in which the majority and the minority are they share power, they their symbols, their the resources and whatever. They rule society together. And like say Canada or Belgium and so forth. And the question is, if you have this kind of thing, I will show, I will briefly talk about Iraq. That's the way that the Americans thought to solve the problem in Iraq by creating a tri-national state, not by, but tri, of three. Okay, let me now start with the review of this modes of accommodation in the Middle East. Now I'm going to show you a summary table. Okay, do you see this table? So you can see on the left side the nine modes of accommodation, and then there are, each accommodation is characterized if it is retentive or it is eliminating. On the also if it is authoritarian or democratic, and then I have examples from the Middle East of each of this, the use of each of this mode. Let me start with subordination. The title of my talk is really Subordination and Other Modes of Accommodation. Why I'm using, why I am distinguishing separately subordination, because I feel that subordination is really the dominant, the overwhelming mode of accommodation. Minorities in the Middle East, they have been for centuries subordinated to majorities, and this hasn't really stopped, even when in the Middle East emerged new national states which that extended civil rights to everybody, including the minorities. Now let's take subordination. Subordination of is retentive. I mean, it keeps the minority as is, and it is authoritarian. This means creates inferiority and superiority, inferiority of the minority and superiority of the majority. Now, the subordination is best reflected in the millet system. This is Islamic system of treating minorities with tolerance and some kind of acceptance. It was used for Jews and for Christians that Islam accepted because they are more, they believe in God, one God, but at the same time they are called dhimmis, this kind of foreigners, and the dhimmis were the Jews and also the Christians. So they really, I mean, to say the positive side of it, they got autonomy. They can manage their own religious and community affairs, and also they were protected by the regimes. So so their safety was defended. But we have to say the other side. They get this autonomy and acceptance as long as they accept the supremacy of the Muslims. And also, they do not challenge the restrictions made on them. And all these millet systems, which has been around from the beginning of the Islam to, in fact, to the 19th century, the Muslims were the supreme force. They were the majority, and they dictated the rules of the game. Now, what happens then when there is a new national state? Now, all these national states kept the millet system. Even Israel, which is democratic and apparently secular, accepted the idea of millet state. The state defines every citizen into one religion, and there is no free mixing between interfaith. There is no interfaith marriage. So marriage, there is no civil marriage and divorce. So in fact, the millet system in all countries in the Middle East, including Israel, emphasize the religious identity of a person and runs counter to development of a civic, non-religious, common identity of people who live in the same state. Now, you take, for example, the Copts in Egypt. They are a millet, and they have civil rights and they share power to some extent, but there are limitations on them. One limitation, which is very interesting, they cannot repair their churches without approval of the government. This shows that their religious status and civic status is inferior to the Muslim majority, Muslim Arab majority. Now, there are states in the Middle East where the subordination is very extreme. And this is in the Gulf states, where there are a large number of people who arrived as foreign workers, but they stay there for many years, and they would like to get citizenship, but they are not accepted, and there is no way for them to naturalize. So you see the subordination here works in very extreme way. Now let me go now to genocide. Now, you can ask, have there been genocide in the Middle East? Of course. I mean, in 1915, there was a genocide of the Armenians in the Ottoman Empire, the end of the Ottoman Empire. They were accused of being a fifth column for Russia, and 1.5 million Armenians were killed or deported. So this is the genocide of the Armenians. Now, more recently, we have a genocide of the Yazidis in Iraq. The Yazidis have suffered from mass killing for centuries. It's not just in 2014, but in 2013 when the mass communication is open, so you can hear about it. So this was done, and this was done by ISIS, by the Islamic State, Daesh, against the Yazidis, who were accused of being devil worshippers. The Yazidis are neither Christian nor Muslim. They have something in between, and but they were accused of being really infidels, and also they are dangerous to religiously. Another mode of accommodation is population transfer. This means you want to homogenize the population by reducing the number of the minority.
Professor, I'm sorry, but we have 5 more minutes.
How much?
5.
5 minutes. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So you got the table. I will just mention very easily.
Thank you.
And we have this. We have the population transfer between Turkish and Greece in 1922. We have the Palestinians in 1948, and we have now the Syrian refugees to Europe or to Germany in very recently. Now another mode is involuntary assimilation. You get rid of the minority by assimilating them forcibly. And this is done today or have been done for the last 100 years in Turkey against the Kurds. Another is partition. The way to make society more homogeneous is by giving the minority a state of their own. So you reduce the homogeneity and bad treatment of minority. This is done by Sudan recently by creating Southern Sudan. And now they have also to do that for Darfur, not only for Southern Sudan. And also the proposed solution to the Palestinian question is again to create a new state for the Palestinians, so you homogenize the Israeli controlled area. And again, another way of doing it is by giving minorities autonomy. This is also used in various areas. And this is more democratic, of course. And this is what happens really in Lebanon, that various communities got autonomy. And this is the solution which Morocco tries in Western Sahara. And the Western Sahara, the Polisario, do not accept that, and they continue the conflict. They want a separate state rather than autonomy. And I mentioned Iraq, and I urge you to learn about the American solution for Iraq, the 2005 Constitution for Iraq, which created a tri-national state in which the Shiite majority, the minority of Sunnis, and a minority of the Kurds. But the Kurds not really accepting it. They try to become a state, but they don't have the support of the big powers, so they really cannot do. And finally, what really missing in the Middle East, which is the main mode of accommodation, is liberalism. This is assimilation, a free, voluntary assimilation. What happens in the West, that the West is having liberal democracies, open society, in which people can mix up freely, they can marry each other, and they develop through education, public education, and the media and so forth, the idea of a civic identity, which is shared by all. This doesn't mean that these countries do not have problems with minorities. Of course they do, but this is a way democratic, but at the same time, it's eliminating, because assimilation reduces the minorities, they're absorbed by the majority. Let me just end with a conclusion that I don't have really hope for the short run for the Middle East about resolving the question of minority. Most of these modes which are in the Middle East are not really democratic. They are some kind of subordination or emerging from subordination. So what really needs in the Middle East is some secularization and, of course, democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much.